This piece for the United Nations, and it is part of a large series. You know, 2011 was, do you know what 2011 was? The year of people of African descent, 2011. And all throughout the year, the world, there were celebrations about us, the people of African descent, the people of the Western diaspora. As there are several diasporas throughout the world, we happen to live in the youngest. So I'm going to go through this piece, and the reason that I wanted to preface this is because, again, this is really a very ambitious project to tackle these empires. The first thing I need to do is distinguish between empires and kingdoms. They're not the same, particularly in Africa. But I started, when I wrote this piece, I started with the 26 dynasties of Egypt. It's an impossible task. I can't get through it. So I decided to just brief it and skip over it and go into 7 different kingdoms and empires. 3 of them are, well, there are 2 ways to distinguish Africa. One is literacy and pre-literacy, which I talk about here, and the other is the time before Europe, time after Europe, 2 different histories. But it's important for us to, when we look at the whole historical corpus of Africa, that we don't compare it to European history. It's not. The first 3 universities in the world came out of Africa. Al-Azhar in Cairo, El-Qaeda in Fez, Morocco, and then the 3rd one, W.B. Du Bois, was the first to call the University of Sankore at Timbuktu. And these universities should not be compared to Notre Dame, Yale. That's not how African sensibilities disseminated information. These were mostly schools in mosques. For more than 6,000 years of common ancestry, this region speaks variations of languages belonging to the Niger-Congo branch. Large populations of hunter-gatherers developed this ancient culture after migrating inland from the coast. In an attempt to establish authority within new settlements, fictitious stories were created linking ethnicities like the Fulani to Yemen or the Muslims of Yoruba to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Claims are made which date Arab princes arriving from the north and east, and after mixing with indigenous peoples created the very first alliances and kinships upon which pagan kingdoms were built. Now you'll forgive me here because I need to distinguish between kingdoms and empires. Kingdoms are single entities with a singular ethnic focus where the identity of the kingdom was related to one person, and in some rare cases, a female. An empire would be multi-ethnic, and when I say ethnic, I'm not talking about race. Africa doesn't deal with race. Africa deals with ethnicities, which are based upon geography and language. So there are multiple hundreds of ethnicities there. An empire, as I'm going to get into here, would have encompassed multi-ethnicities and languages, would have had a central government, would have had, more importantly, an economy that tied itself to the outside world, specifically the northern Mediterranean areas. When I say Mediterranean Africa, the Levant, which would have been areas like Iraq, Persia, which is now Iran, places in that area, and the Hijaz, which would have been Saudi Arabia, Yemen, places of that area.
We called upon the hidden Amen. We reveled in the living Aten. Standing upon Geb and breathing in Shu, we built the pyramid of Khufu. We stood under the arms of Nut while being protected by hovering Mut. We buried Akhenaten and Seti in the beautiful King's Valley. We understood the Ba while respecting the Ka. We believed it to be our duty to be as learned as Jehudi. Hieroglyphs on the walls of the tombs, treasures buried in pharaonic rooms, 10,000-year-old pyramids, just some of the extraordinary things we did. pyramids that were lined up with the stars, Dogonic knowledge of Sirius and Mars, statues of Hatshepsut, monuments that have stayed put, structures that still stand today that no one else can duplicate.
Well, all right.
Ramses, Amun, and the Sphinx. These are our ancestral links. We ate barley, wheat, rice, and bread. We protected the unborn and we mummified the dead. We birthed the likes of Imhotep, whose genius created the pyramid of steps. He is the father of medicine, physician, architect, this African man. It is through his genius by which we came. He led by example, call on his name.
All right.
We called on the rising of Ptah, exalted the name of Amun-Ra. We knew of Warseer, Aset, and Horus. These are the Netchas that before us. We harnessed electricity through the Jed, lighting the tombs for the dead. On the mountains, we carved our glyphs. We signaturized the Valley of Rifts. This land of Karnak and Abydos, Abu Simbel, and Cairo. Beloved land we knew as Kemet. No carnage or Isfet was native to it.
Wow.
Along the Nile was the sacred land. Underneath our feet, the sacred sand. We stood in awe of all created, where the Wahimi Mesu was celebrated. Memphis, Luxor, the Valley Nile, our unparalleled African style. This pharaonic world of kings and queens, the highest culture this world has ever seen.